Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered how to live your best self with bacon? Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, and as always, I'm here with your host, Nicholas T. Smith. He is the author of The Giants and the Smalls. If you haven't picked up a copy, you can go to giantsandsmalls.com. Follow us on YouTube, where you can hit the subscribe button, hit the alert button. You know when we go live every single dang time. I can't talk because I got bacon, and all I can do is my mouth is salivating because we
That's what
got
she said.
live bacon. Yeah. Today
Oh, God.
we're taking you to church with Steve Bacon. It's gonna get
Don't.
real. It's gonna
Yeah.
get awesome. Steve Bacon's just gonna be Steve mother freaking Bacon. He might say the real thing too.
That
I
flimsy
like how
bacon.
Yeah, there's no flimsy bacon. It's all crisp up in here.
Oh
Hmm.
my God, this is gonna be
Steve, do you want a
hilarious.
bio or not?
Uh,
I like your
Listen, fam.
philosophy.
listen, fam. Let me do it. Let me do it.
Yeah.
Let me do it. What up, family? It's your coach, Steve Bacon, and you'll figure the rest of me out as we go along.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So we'll skip all that part. I won't go into it. So we're going to dive right into your journey. We're going to go into your philosophy. Our vision is to really document who you are. Ryan, is there any other housekeeping you want to cover?
Just watch for the SG groups. You can sign up on. You can find us Facebook. Go to Facebook, a Tribe of Giants. You'll see all the stuff. What
I
else we
think
got, Nick?
I think check out the Stretch Revolution. It's
Mm.
the Sum Gigante groups, but self-study. So it's a lot. It's at your pace, same content, but you get to do it at your pace. Really affordable, kind of a ridiculous price for 12 weeks of coaching. And so we'll put the link for that in the comments as well. Steve, I've got you up here.
Wait, did you say
Yeah.
it's a ridiculous price for 12 weeks? Is that your program?
Yes.
I love that. I love that. Oh, Felicia, can we put that on our website? Ridiculous price for 1 year of coaching.
That's right. It's ridiculous.
I love it.
It's
I
ridiculous.
love it.
Hey, look, everybody already knows Cigar Group. See,
Oh,
they
yeah.
know. They
Me
know.
too. I love cigars. If you don't know that about me, I love cigars. McAuliffe is my brand if I had a brand, but we just started the Giant Cigar Group. And so if you're a cigar aficionado, is that how you say it? Or aficionado?
I don't know.
Say it one way or the other.
I am
If you like
terrible at grammar.
cigars,
I'm the last person to ask. I'm
yeah,
terrible.
you'll like Giant Cigars, the group.
Coach Steve Bacon has his tea. I've got my bacon and eggs.
Oh, yeah. Just to prepare you too, there will be some language in the show. And so this will be one of those shows. Steve's one of his favorite words is that F word that we all love. But just be prepared. If that doesn't work for you, you might want to skip this one and go to another one. But if it gets in the way of your learning and growth, then this might not be the episode for you. But if you can
Listen,
if you can
a
hang,
well-timed F word is spiritual.
There might be like 22 spiritual moments on this show.
It's
Yeah.
a spiritual awakening with a well-timed F-bomb.
All right, man, let's dive in. Let's go on your journey. Let's go back in time. So either to an awakening moment, so we'll go either way, or childhood. If that was a defining period in your life, we want to go into that. So if you want to start during childhood and development, go there. Otherwise, go to your awakening moment. Does that make
The
sense?
awakening, yeah. So listen, literally someone's interested in making a documentary about my first 20 years of my life. That's how packed my childhood was. But the awakening moment, and I'll go into whatever you guys want me to go into. I'm an open book. I have zero secrets. The awakening moment was at 18 when I was sitting in the bathroom with a loaded shotgun in my mouth, and my ex-wife is banging on the door. Stop! 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 And I pull the fucking trigger. And the only thing that saved me was God. It just wasn't my time to go. And when I heard the click, it was like instant regret. I realized that I didn't want to die. I just didn't know how to live. That was the awakening moment.
Holy crap, man. Talk about an impactful intro. Like I want to hang here for a minute before we go through the rest of the story. How many people are, you know, dead before they're dead in a way? You don't know how to live, right? I kind of want to go down that rabbit hole with you for a minute.
Let's go. Wherever you want to go.
So that let's go to that moment and kind of building up to it. And this might be a trigger warning for somebody watching, is just, you know, this might bring up some of those heavy emotions in you too, but this idea that I don't know how to live. So the only way I know how to do things right now is to take my life, and then it doesn't work and you're still here. Right.
Yeah.
Tell me kind of the mindset that was going on right there that created that situation. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because whenever I do a speech or a workshop or anything like that, like a lot of people don't use slides when they do talks. I do, specifically because I understand that some people are auditorial learners, but the visuals, pictures are worth 1,000 words. And when I do a talk, after they do the intro and it's all fun and dancing, the first picture is a reenactment with me and with a gun in my mouth. That's the first thing people see.
Man.
Right. And the reason being is because I want them to see where I ended up, but that's not where I began. And the next picture is me as a happy baby. So the question becomes, how do you go from that to that, right? How do you go from happy baby to gun in your mouth at 18 years old?
Yeah, wow.
And I was tired. By the time I was 18, my mom got addicted to crack when I was 6 months old. I went to 14 schools growing up. So imagine being like the new kid every year. I was molested as a kid. I was almost kidnapped in my driveway, right, where we lived. And then I was told that I was held for ransom by a drug dealer at one point. I met my father when I was 8, at least that I cognitively remember. We had a really contentious, abusive relationship till I was about 14. I went to the military at 17 to get away from everything, and all my trauma followed me. And I married the first girl who said she loved me. Now, to back that up, or to dive a little more into that, my grandmother was like the only thing like holding me together. So for those of you that are watching that had like a grandparent or aunt or uncle, that was really the rock in your life. My grandmother was the glue, right? Holding me together. And when she passed away about 2 weeks after I graduated from boot camp, somewhere around there, 2 weeks to a month after I graduated from boot camp, I just unraveled. I didn't know what to do, right?
She was the glue, right? She was the glue holding it together.
And when she died, I unraveled. And I met this girl who we were from like the same area, and we started dating. And when my grandmother passed, it's like, I only know this in retrospect, but I just took all of my self-worth and passed it to her because it was in my grandmother. And then when my grandmother passed, I literally remember saying to this girl, I think my grandmother knew that she was going to pass, and her spirit introduced me to you to take care of me. Like, that's where I was at like 17 years old. So I just literally put all of my self-worth into this girl.
Yeah.
And 3 months of dating. right? And so, of course, we're kids. So we're not like mature. And everything was great all the way up until she said, I love you. And when she said, I love you, I became a completely fucking different person. It was like Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde. I turned into this jealous, raging, angry, like Hulk-like figure. And I was abusive, physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Okay, let's
to her.
hang on to that, because like the candidness right here, this is going to be impactful, because that codependency, right, that shows up and it hits another person because of all of that trauma and the insecurities and everything that went on behind the scenes they don't know about, right? It gets put over on another person like it's their job to take care of all that, right? Like you did with your grandma's energy, it got put over there.
Yeah.
It happens so much. Codependency can come in a lot of forms, you know, and then all this energy, this struggle that you haven't learned to deal with in your life gets put over on another person like it's their responsibility. And then we go into that rageful state, right? Like you become a different human. You literally become a different human. And
100%.
so people don't know who they're working with. They don't know what's going on.
That's facts, man. You know, I did this event a few years ago, and we're doing our next one in June. And it's like a Tyler Perry, Tony Robbins mashup that I put together. It's like if Tyler Perry got together with Tony Robbins, what would that look like? And I did this one skit.
Tony Perry?
Tyler Perry. Oh, Tony
Perry?
You'd have a child
if Tony Robbins and Tyler Perry had a child, it'd be Steve Bacon with a little bit of sperm, with a little bit of sperm from Dave Chappelle.
Sorry, I joke when I get uncomfortable or we talk about heavy topics.
You'd have Steve Bacon with banana fingers.
Right. So, damn it, you threw me off.
The Tony Perry Chappelle show.
Yeah.
Tony Perry Chappelle.
I did this skit where me and this girl was sitting across from each other and we were pretending to have dinner.
Yeah.
But standing behind her were 3 people that abused her when she was a child. And standing behind me were 3 people that abused me. And as we're eating, these 6 people start arguing. But we have duct tape over our mouths.
Oh, wow.
And then it got to the point where, you know, the arguments got real heated. And then I flipped the table over. And then the curtains closed. And when I walked around in front of the stage, I said, this is what it looks like when you bring your trauma into your relationship. You never had a fucking chance. Because you're not doing the talking. You're not the one in the relationship. Your trauma's in the relationship. Your trauma versus their trauma.
That's right? Exactly what's going on, right? All of that.
Yeah. And so back up. So how did I get to the point where, because it wasn't just my grandmother passing away. There was a piece before that. When I was 8 years old, this Chico DeBarge looking dude shows up at my grandmother's house. And I have no idea really who this guy is. And my grandmother's like, this is your daddy. I'm like, okay, why are you here? And he's like, you're coming to live with me. And I'm like, no, the fuck I ain't. I don't know you. Like, what is going on? And where is my mama? She just dropped me off. Why is this dude here to pick? No, something ain't right. Why she didn't tell me? Now, my mother and I, even though, you know, she was an addict, and God rest her soul, she passed away a couple years ago. And when she died, we had an amazing relationship. But, you know, it was like Tupac said, even though you a crack fiend, mama, you always was a black queen, mama. So in my mother's eyes, she still could do no wrong, right? Or in my eyes to my mother, she still could do no wrong. And so when this man says that I'm coming to live with him, you got to think about an 8-year-old child in that space. What do you make that mean? And in the black culture, we have this thing that, you know, a child is not supposed to question an adult. But what parents don't realize is part of human nature is part of the emotional needs is certainty. I need to know why. Like, think about as an adult, when you don't know why something is, it makes you uncomfortable. And so you make up some shit just to feel like you know, to get rid of the uncomfortability.
Think about an
Right?
8-year-old too. I've got a 10-year-old daughter, right? And I think
Right.
of her logic at 10 years old. And then 2 years ago, the logic that she had then, that she's trying to make sense of the world with that development.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so when you tell the child, don't question me, you don't need to know, I don't need to explain myself to you, then what you're saying to the child is, with your 8-year-old logic, and you're only about 3 years into conscious awareness, so really you got about 3 years of living experience, you make up the reasons why. That's really what you're saying to the child when you don't explain what's going on. And so for me, a child being emotional, not having enough life experience, it takes everything personal. I said, it's about me. It must be about me.
Okay. Can I highlight? Hang on to that, because I want to highlight this. Up until the age of 25, that brain is in development. Yeah. During the formative years, a parent acts as the prefrontal cortex for a child. They act as that part of the brain that does the logic and the understanding and the reasoning. They have to explain to their kids. That's their responsibility as a parent, is to teach them. And you didn't have that. Like, you didn't have that. So it's all left on you.
It's all left on this
undeveloped brain. Yeah.
And so for an 8-year-old, you know, that's a whole nother level of trauma, to be separated from the only thing, right, that you know and trust that's there to take care of you. And so being separated from my mom and my grandmother, you know, when the brain experiences that much, when you experience that much trauma, your brain takes a snapshot of what's causing that trauma and then develops a strategy to avoid being put in that position ever again. So for me, it was the belief that was created in that moment was, the women who love you will leave you. And never trust a woman who says she loves you at 8 years old. So now fast forward, 17 years old, proposing to get married, she says, I love you, and then I flip a switch. Now that belief comes in, never trust a woman who says she loves you. So now, where in the first 3 months our relationship was amazing, she says, I love you, a switch flips, and now all of a sudden I'm questioning everything. Right? We have this need to be loved, but then when we have this fear that we won't be loved, and then when we get love, we have this fear that we're going to lose it.
Man, I mean, you're hitting on attachment styles from childhood that all of us, even as adults, I mean, we got to work through this stuff. So at 17 years old, 18 years old, you're impacted by this attachment style that says, people who love me, leave me.
Yeah.
The abandonment, right? So
Absolutely.
you have this this fearful, almost avoidant attachment style where as soon as somebody says they love you, you become afraid of them, and then you start to avoid them. You start to treat them like they're another human being, right?
And you don't know why. And that's the thing. Yeah. Like, the people say that, oh, you don't need to go into people's past when you're coaching. Bullshit. That shit pisses me off. Because that's literally where they develop their entire model of the world. Everything else, by the time somebody's 14, they have literally 85% of what they believe about themselves and their place in the world, they've already decided. By 14, that's why them years in teenage years are so fucking awkward. And then by the time you develop this identity, this self-image, and then, okay, all right, think about it this way. When my wife went to get her master's degree in psychology, she had to write a thesis. And simply, to write your thesis, you pick a problem, you pose a question, right? You do your research, you come up with a conclusion, and then your thesis is your conclusion, and then all the research you did to back up that conclusion, right? In a nutshell. When a child is born, That is the closest to God that a human being will ever get. That infant, it just is. That is pure energy. That is pure I am. That's all possibility. And then somewhere in the childhood, 3, 4, 5 years old, conscious awareness kicks in, and that child recognizes that they're alive. Because before that, you don't even know you're alive. Right? Think about your children at 1, 2, 3 years old. That is pure joy, love, peace, abundance, non-judgment, forgiveness, all of that. That is straight out of the manufacturer. That's who we are naturally. That's in the garden. We can't find that Garden of Eden because it's not a fucking place. It's a state of being. And then conscious awareness kicks in. And that's like waking up out of a coma with amnesia. Can you imagine? You've been asleep and then you wake up and you don't know who you are. So what becomes the initial innate question? Who am I? Now your thesis has begun. Who am I? And your environment is your research, how you're treated, what you're taught, what you're told. Self-image is not what I think of me. It's not what you think of me. It's what I think you think of me. And in those development years, it's your parents. What I think you think of me is who I am. And at some point, you get enough evidence and you go, this is who I am. You make a decision about yourself, and that becomes the foundation of what you live your life on. So when I coach people, I'm going to the thesis.
Let's hang on this, man. Your intensity drives this home. It's beautiful. The idea that somebody goes back in time and they identify where these ideas and beliefs and behaviors and thoughts and emotions came from. And there's still the work to do around rewiring and rewriting the story, because there are years and years and years of practice where the brain has developed neural pathways and chemical responses to situations that now you still have to go back in and reprogram.
100%.
So it's not just enough to go back and identify where it came from, because it doesn't change the behavior. Now it becomes a situation of rewriting and reliving into what you call that thesis, right?
Absolutely. And it comes down to one word: meaning. That's it. What did you make it mean? When I do a workshop on healing, and I'm probably going to do another one coming up soon. I usually do it for organizations, but I'm going to do a masterclass on healing soon. And I tell people there's only one word that matters when it comes to healing, and the word is meaning. And I'll do this picture. I'll tell this story of a girl who was raped and had a stillborn at 14 years old and was given up for adoption and molested by her uncles and this, that, and there's just this horrible story. And then I'll click the next photo or the next slide, and it's this girl on the street. And she looked like she's like, methed out. And I said, does it make sense that this story belongs to this girl? And everybody goes, yes. And I said, well, it's not this girl's story. And the next picture is the story of Oprah. That's her story. Wow. Now, granted, there are women and men that go through the same type of thing and end up on the street. And there are people that go through the same type of thing and end up becoming beacons of light for the rest of the world. It's also the reason why you can have two kids that grow up in the same household and turn out two different people. Because life events are neutral. They suck. Some things suck, but the event itself is neutral. The meaning you give it creates the quality of life. So you have to go back and change the meaning. You can't change the event. It sucks. My cousin stuck his dick in my mouth when I was a kid. It sucked. But what I made it mean about me is what created the quality of life going forward. Now I know it wasn't about me. So the meaning changed. It wasn't about me. In order for a kid to do that to another kid, someone had to have shown, you understand what I'm saying? Hurt people hurt people. That wasn't about me. I was involved. It wasn't about me.
Man. Steve, let's hang on this. We got to hang on these because these are impactful. The time at 18, was that the awakening to all of this, to your understanding and starting to learn all of this? Because when you put that gun in your mouth, no,
nope, that wasn't it.
Okay,
it was the awakening that I didn't want to die, and I needed to find a different way to live.
Okay,
but the awakening really happened when I got introduced to personal development for the first time. And this guy named Hank, I was walking out of a courtroom because there's a lot that happened after that gun moment. I was walking out of a courtroom and this guy Hank stood in my way and he says, "Let me give you a ride home." And I didn't know who this guy was, but I needed a ride home anyway. And on the way home, he said, "If you just change what you believe about yourself, everything will change." And I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. But he was that angel that just showed up out of nowhere, because this guy I had no idea who this man was. But he kind of grabbed me by the hand metaphorically for like a year and shoved as much personal development down my throat as he possibly could. And I started going to these conferences and things like that, and started seeing people tell these rags to riches stories, like people whose stories are just as bad or worse than mine, now living these amazing lives. And they're just like, "Oh, well, if you just work on yourself, then your life will get better." And I was like, "Well, okay, well, then that's it." And then I just developed this, as C.T. Fletcher says, a magnificent obsession with human growth and development. And it's like, okay, well, I want to fix me so that I can go live a better life. The challenge that I had with personal development is that they always told you what to do, but never how. There was never the how. It was always a lot of what's. But when you go ask somebody, okay, there's like, "You got to change your belief." I'm like, "Great. How do I do that?" So my study became the how, the mechanics. How do you actually do it? And when I figured that out, that's what I dedicated the rest of my life to teaching.
I need another piece of bacon.
Okay, so there's some research that's been done that says when you work on yourself, you can't help but serve others. I mean, when you take care of this, it impacts others. By default, we're wired for social connection. We create that automatically. So as you take care of this, it automatically bleeds out into your world around you to others. Yeah. And personal development to me is the way. Like each of us takes that responsibility. It's the Munchausen effect, right? Like the idea, I don't know if you know that story, but the idea that this guy's sinking in the mud with his horse and he's shouting for someone to come save him. Nobody's coming. So he grabs himself by the ponytail and lifts himself out of the mud onto the shore and goes on his way. And that is the creation. The challenge is a lot of us sit around waiting for somebody to bring that quick fix or that how, like, you know, the how. You just show me how, right? Or the what. And you do the work for me. And so I can be saved, right? And the idea there is nobody's coming.
Nobody's coming.
Werner Erhard, right? Like nobody is coming to save you. And that can feel really defeating, but it's the power that we have, because as soon as we start doing our own work, we start to realize how quickly we can change our lives and how powerful we actually are. It's the giant's journey. It's the same thing that we teach, that you teach. We teach the same message in different formats. It's that you already have that in here because it was masked by some event in your life, and it's an event. You know, we say it's an experience or a memory or a trauma, but it's an event that we gave meaning to, right? We made it mean something, and then that meaning defined everything that we did from there. And 100%. So that rules our life. And then all of our behaviors and habits are designed around that meaning, that story, and we live into it. It becomes our reality. And as we see it as our reality, it confirms that story. It tells us it's true. Well, it might not be fucking true. It might take you a moment to step back from it and really look at your story and say, "That's a great story, Ryan. You've heard this. That's a great story. I would buy that in a bookstore." The problem is it's just not true.
Yeah, I've been told that by Nick a couple of times. This is a wonderful story you're telling. Let's
I'm gonna
change
have to borrow that, Nick. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. You're
That's
welcome
good.
to use it. I mean, the whole vision that we have, Steve, is to wake people up that the narrative that you've got going on, the meaning making, there's
Yeah.
also another version of that. People without purpose die. Like you did in that bathroom at 18, people without purpose and meaning die. So we need meaning. The problem is that the meaning that we're assigning is hurting us or unuseful or damaging or unpowerful. And what you're offering in your story is, look, I've been through some events that are pretty damn bad that would rival anything that's out there. That if we were to set them up on a pedestal and compare events, that you would say, holy shit, that's got a gold medal as far as events go. And you have an excuse, Steve Bacon, because you got a gold medal in the events of your life to not do a damn thing about it, to play the victim of your life. And people do that. But the challenge is recognizing that you also have this power to create it differently. Like you said, it's a way of being. The Garden of Eden is a way of being. It's not a place. It's a way of being, and it's a creation. And the problem is that people don't see that as their creation. They see it as reaction to the world, not a creation of the world. Same letters in those two words, right? Different arrangement. But you spin those words around. Now you're the creator, not the reactor to your life. And so what I'm hearing in your story and your journey, and I appreciate the intensity that you share it with, because I can see you up on stage with Les Brown, or, you know, beyond Les Brown, like the Tony Robbins, you know, Tyler Perry, Dave Chappelle show, right? It would be entertaining and impactful. But the intensity that you share with brings the message home, because, you know, even the example of the woman who was abused becoming Oprah, whereas many of us tell the story, no, it's the woman on the streets. No, we all have that Oprah within us, as an analogy, as a metaphor. So when you dive into personal development, was it overnight? Like you just all of a sudden picks up, you know, The Giant Within by Tony Robbins, and then he's a changed man. Is that how it went?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Hold on.
Yep.
No. I initially dove in to get rich, because that's what they said you need to do to get rich, right?
Yeah. Okay.
You got to heal all your shit to get rich. That was I grew up in network marketing. So
yeah.
Right after I caught my felony at 19, 20 years old, and I got out of the military, then it was, okay, I could either break bricks for a living or I could do fast food. And then that's when I got introduced to network marketing, and that's what introduced me to personal development.
And they're big on personal development. Yeah.
Right. We used to say that network marketing is a personal development plan with a personal development program with a compensation plan attached to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, they said, you know, work on you harder than you work on your job. Right. And that was the late, great Jim Rohn. And so that just became a way of life, personal development. But it was when I started to feel different and show up different that I started to realize, oh, there's something to this. Because growing up, you know, the only thing I ever knew about Tony Robbins was Shallow Hal, right? And in my world, right? And in my world, personal development was for weirdos and white people. So
it's the same thing. Weirdos and white people. Just so you know, they're
really
not separate things.
But it's because in our community, growing up where we grew up, right? I grew up in the Bay Area between Hayward, Oakland. Like you don't get to say there's something wrong with you. Like you suck that shit up. Ain't nothing wrong with you, right? And I get it in a sense, right? But you know, there was this TikTok going around about, you know, when black kids tell their black parents, I'm depressed, and the parents be like, you better go depress your ass in there in them kitchens with them dishes, right? Get the fuck out of here. Right? Like the mental health was a stigma, right?
Yeah.
In our community,
it's stoic, right?
Up.
It's stoic.
Yeah. So and I'm glad now that more and more of our community is getting into personal development. It's super dope, because a lot of us are becoming entrepreneurs now. And so personal development is it. But back then, personal development, self-help books, tapes, that's to say that something is wrong with you. So when I got introduced to it, it was kind of, at first, but then I started to feel different. I'm like, yo, it's something to this. And that's when I just started to really dive in deeper. And I just became a voracious learner, like getting my hands on everything. Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor, Jim Rohn was like a huge.
Okay. Can we dive down that right there? That voracious learner. Einstein's brain, same as yours and mine, no different. 86 billion neurons, 85 billion glial cells, same structure. The difference is what he put in, right? And what he drew from in the neocortex. So that drawing of information, that voraciousness of learning around a certain thing. He was a terrible insurance salesman. So if you compared him to another insurance salesman, you'd say he was an ignorant person. He failed at it. He was terrible at it. Wow. But the guy created the theory of relativity. And the only reason he did it, the distinction between him and you and I, is that he fed his brain so much content around that when it came time to draw from it, he had more to draw from than the average human. So he'd actually created more mass in that area, but it was from that voraciousness of learning. And so the idea here, there's two parts I want to play with here. So one is that voraciousness of learning now becomes the draw bank for your meaning making. Because now you're not just drawing from what you knew, your remembered presence, right? The past that you brought forward. Now you're adding in all that content from others that are greats, and you're blending that with that past. So now it becomes a foundation for anything in the future. And eventually that becomes the new you. Now around that, where I want to play with here is the idea that your old traumas and emotions and thoughts and beliefs didn't just go away. In fact, I would still venture to say that they're still present, but they don't have the impact because you've created a new pathway and a new way of being. Even though they might be there and running at times, you know how to direct it in another way. Is that accurate?
I have the memories, but no emotional connection attached.
Okay. Yeah. So the memories are there, but the emotions are dimmed or numbed or gone.
Yeah, well, they're gone. They're not even numb. They're not dim. They're gone. And I learned, and I'll be honest, it was when I learned Mental and Emotional Release by Dr. Matt James. There's a book he wrote a book a few years ago. You can find it on Amazon called Mental and Emotional Release, where he and his father, Tad James, created this method called mental and emotional release, where you can create the discharge, or not create the discharge, you can eliminate the electrical charge between you and past memories. And so remember, a belief is just an emotion, a strong emotion attached to an idea.
Yes. Hit on that, because it's a cluster of ideas tied to emotion, right? Here we go.
Now we got Nick going. Here's Nick's like,
well, because that's what and when I do workshops, whenever I do a workshop, I walk in there like Vince Lombardi did back in the day with This Is a Football. The first thing we're talking about, this is a belief. We're not talking about shit else until you understand everything about this word.
Is that the
because
official
it controls everything? Huh?
Is that the official term? Shit else?
We're not talking about shit else. Right? Until you understand what this is not, how it's installed, how it's uninstalled, how it affects your life, how it controls your perceptions, how they sometimes contradict with your value system. You need to know everything about this first, right? And then from there, we can explore your entire world, because a belief is not a fact, but because people don't understand the difference between a belief and a fact, people will die for their beliefs when in fact, there's something completely different. Like the way I give the example is, there's a man named Jesus that walked this earth, right? There's plenty of historical references to prove that a man named Jesus walked this earth. Now, was he the son of God, a prophet, or a con man? That's the belief. And people are willing to die for that strong emotion attached to their idea of him.
Right, their truth, right?
Their truth, right? A fact is something that's irrefutable. Fact is, I'm a man. belief is I'm a bad man. It depends on who you ask. Right? So people need to understand the difference between a fact and a belief, because if you aren't getting the results that you want in life, there's a belief attached to that. And then beyond that, there's a being. So that's level 10. But to keep it basic, there's a belief attached to that behavior. There's a strong emotion attached to an idea, and it usually comes from experiencing something over and over and over again. Right? Something happens once. Okay, it happens twice. It's a coincidence. It happened 3 times. That's a pattern. So, hell, I forgot where I was going.
No. Yeah, I'm gonna draw it in.
Hold on, let's have some more bacon here.
I'm gonna draw it in. More bacon time.
I forgot where I was going.
Looking at the journey, though, Steve, your development, your childhood, events happened. It happens for a lot of people. A lot of people go through things, traumas, loss, amputation in some cases, disease, things that affect the body. You went through the space of making it mean something. In fact, you lived a lifetime feeling small in a sense.
Yeah.
And you created a life around that really clarified and brought to reality the objective reality evidence that supported those beliefs, that said that was true.
Right.
You had this moment of awakening of, I don't know how to live. I need to learn how to live. And even more that happened after that introduced you, like no accidents, to people that could help you on that path to build yourself and create yourself. So you go on this journey and align with a giant in your life and stand on his shoulders, a guy who shoves personal development down your throat, basically, gets you to wake up to your giantness, puts you on his shoulders and says, hey, man, there's another way to see the world.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you keep adding in other giants like Jim Rohn and more, and you keep building up those giants and you stand on their shoulders. You start to see the world a little different, start to recognize inside of yourself that there's more potential to Steve Bacon.
Right.
And then you go out and you start working. Now, it's not like it just came and you just got it overnight. You started working and developing and creating yourself as Steve Bacon, even to the degree of letting go of emotional attachment to the past traumas.
Right.
The turning of that wound, that trauma, the word trauma comes from turning of the wound. You keep turning the wound, it's going to hurt for the rest of your life. If you let it heal, it'll heal, but you let go of the emotions of it, you let it heal. The memories are still there of the events, but you're able to work with it to now you're going and giving back to the world. And that's the giant's journey. Those are the 12 journeys that people go through. Is we go through the space of unconsciousness, awareness, grief, gratitude, acceptance, and then we go into uncertainty and vision and creation from the abundance of this world. And then we go to giving back.
Yeah.
And you're going through this journey, and I look at and highlight your journey, and it goes back to whatever you believe is going to show up in your reality, because you're going to act on it because of the emotions. When you have beliefs, they impact the chemicals in your body. And those chemicals tell you whether to act or not act. They'll shut you down or they'll get you into activity.
Right.
And so you go into this space of my beliefs are everything. If I can perceive and believe myself a certain way and I can start to be that in my world, my reality changes by default because of who I'm being. My Garden of Eden is right inside of here. So if I were to drum up what you just shared, I mean, there's so much more to you, Steve Bacon. There's a ton in there. Steve fucking Bacon, right, is your middle initial, middle name. There's so much more.
That's an initial.
Yeah. that it can be summed up. But the journey, this is where I think a lot of people look for this quick fix. This is a lifetime. This is a lifetime of feeding yourself and building yourself. And you're living a new life now in a giant way. Whereas, yeah, maybe there's small times. Maybe there's things where I do feel small. I embrace that small. I love that small because it made me who I am today. But I'm on a new journey. And is that accurate? Am I?
Yeah, man. Listen, you pulled something out of me. I can feel goosebumps coming.
Let's hear
it. People have confused protected my energy with emotional avoidance. Right? I'm about to say something that's going to trigger the shit out of somebody.
Okay.
I lean in.
Right. It's funny because I do work with people coming out of prison, and I say something to them. I say, y'all some hardcore gangsters. Some of y'all out here so tough, but on the inside you softer than a wet piece of bread, and you have this really hard exterior, and you won't let nobody disrespect you, and you'll pop off at the mouth when somebody come at you wrong. But I start getting you to talk about your childhood or your feelings, and you run like a pussy. I mean, you just hide. And I said, and I tell this story because healing only takes a few minutes. Healing is not hard. People have made the mental health industry has made coping popular. But there's a difference between coping and healing. Coping is like having a trash can full of shit sitting in your living room learning how to deal with the smell. You get some sage, you get a face mask, you can light some potpourri and some candles, right? Healing is getting butt naked, jumping in that trash can, cleaning it out, wiping it down with bleach and pushing it outside. But when you're done, you're done. And I remember when I was a kid and I went to live with my dad, me and my stepsister got into a fight and I punched her in the stomach. I was an angry kid, right? And my dad was like, you got two options. He's like, you could go on punishment for 30 days, or you could take this ass whooping and go back outside and play. And I was like, I'll take the punishment because I was too afraid of the ass whooping. My dad was heavy-handed and, he was not a happy dude. So I was like, no, you're not about to rip the skin off of me with no belt. I'll take the punishment for 30 days. And I got in that room for 24 hours, and I realized I made a mistake because it was in the 1990s. It was hot. There was no, it was in a room of white walls with a white bed. I felt like I was in an insane asylum, right? And I remember after being there for a couple of days, I started to beg my dad to take the ass whooping. I'm like, please just give it to me. Because I knew it would only last for a couple of minutes. He was a smoker. It lasted maybe 2 or 3 minutes, but being in here for 30 days is not finna work. This is driving me bananas, right?
Being with yourself, right?
Right, absolutely. Just being alone. And it seems like when you're by yourself like that, the rest of the world is better off without you, because when I'm in a room on punishment, when I'm grounded, now the kids are going to get ice cream and going to the movies. It's like, wait, why is everything better when I'm stuck in here by myself? That's how I felt, right? And so I remember after a few weeks, he let me off of punishment, and I made a commitment to myself that I would never take the punishment over the ass whooping ever again, right? And I'm sharing that because there's some people watching this right now that have been on mental punishment for 20, 30, 40 years because they're too afraid to take a 2-minute ass whooping to heal that shit in the past so they can go back outside and play.
Mm-hmm. Man.
It don't take long because it's just changing the meaning. But a lot of people still holding grudge against their parents. They're still holding grudge against things in the past because what you have to understand, especially during those childhood formative years, whatever memories you have those through the child's eyes. You're still holding. If you come to me and you tell me a story about when you were 8 and you were 40, that tells me your perspective has not changed in 32 years. It means you're 40 years old, still seeing these memories through the eyes of a child. So you have one perspective, and that's the eyewitness testimony of a child. Not to say the child is wrong, but there's so many other aspects that the child doesn't understand of what was going on in that situation. And you took it personal because that's what you're supposed to do as a child. You don't know any better. But if you're not willing to go back and look at the same scenario, because you'll have children, nieces, nephews, cousins, kids, whatever, go through the same thing you went through, and the first thing you start doing is changing their meaning. Listen, don't make this mean anything about you. So innately, you know that the meaning matters. The challenge is nobody's ever done it for you.
Man, people will hear this, Steve. They'll hear this and they'll go right into a shame state and a guilt state, and they'll keep themselves there from that story of shame and guilt. They'll hear this information and they'll think, yeah, I know that. I know I do that. I feel so stupid. I feel so broken. I feel like I can't change. Everybody else can do this, but I can't. They'll say that to themselves.
Yeah.
This isn't a shame thing. What you're offering here is an opportunity to wake up to your way of being, your childish behaviors. And that's what it is. It's emotional development that never occurred because it didn't even have a chance to, has to develop at some point. And until you wake up to your responsibility to do that for yourself and bring that in, there's no change for you.
Yeah.
And it's not a shame thing. There's no shame in that. It's just an awakening to what's available for you. There's opportunity and anybody can do it. I've had 73-year-old women reach out and say, I've got new purpose in my life at 73. I got 4-year-olds reaching out saying, I got purpose in my life. I'm a giant, right? So in between, at what point are you too old to change? Tell me that. At what age are you too old for a new purpose?
Right.
And a new meaning, right, Steve? So I hear your story, and I don't care if it was at 18 or 4 or 74, there's still, if you're breathing, there's still a chance. I think of Jocko Willink. Is that his name, Jocko? And he says,
the Navy SEAL guy?
Yeah, he says, if you're breathing, then get up, dust yourself off, reload, re-engage, and get back out there into the fight, right? And what happens is we don't get up, we don't dust off, we don't recalibrate and reload and re-engage, we quit. And there's a chance here in what you're sharing is regardless of the story, regardless of the events that happened in your life, there's always a chance to rewrite it and live it differently. Man, I think every person watching, I would be benefited by sitting with you in conversation around this. Like to really look at the narrative that I play, you know? And I say that as though I shouldn't have anything like that. I absolutely do. Old childhood development comes up.
Yeah. Here's the premise that I coach from.
Yeah.
Everybody has like a premise, right? My premise is this. There's nothing wrong with you other than the fact that you believe something's wrong with you. And by the time we're done, I'm going to make you feel real stupid for ever believing something was wrong with you in the first place.
I need more bacon.
Yeah, and some people, they can handle my style. Some people can't.
Yeah.
But it's what you said in the very beginning. When you awaken, right? The intensity is not from me still being angry about my past. I'm not.
Yeah.
My dad and I have an amazing relationship. Like he's even considering to move down here with me now, right? Like we have an amazing relationship. And if you want to see the healing that took place, you can go to my Facebook page and scroll back a couple of months and you'll see that me and my dad reconciled after 20 years.
Incredible.
Right?
Yeah.
And he spent 8 days with me and we've been best friends ever since, like little girls. Right? And it's because
did you say like little girls?
Like little girls. We've been giddy, like little girls.
I get it.
Right?
Yeah.
And shit, now I lost my train of thought.
Yeah,
again.
see,
where was I going?
We keep that for Alex. Oh,
the intensity. So the intensity doesn't come from me being angry about my past. I'm one of the most emotionally healthy people you will ever meet. I promise you. It is very hard to piss me off, and it was very, 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 very hard to trigger me, right? The intensity comes from love.
Yeah,
love.
I feel that.
I am staring into I am. I am God, and so are you. Do you have any idea of who you are? There is nothing wrong with you other than a thought that something is wrong with you because you have some really shitty perspectives. So when you come in here, you come to the belief theory court of appeals. You bring all of your judgments that you've judged yourself on. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not deserving. You bring all of that into my courtroom. You bring all of your evidence. And I am the defense attorney. I am the protector and defender of I am. I am the defense attorney for your highest self. You bring all of your judgments because you convicted yourself, judge, jury, and executioner, without a proper defense attorney. And I'm going to poke holes in every last one of them childhood stories that you got to help you realize that, number one, it wasn't about you. Two, you have a shitty perspective. And three, you are whole and complete. I love what you said about Munchausen's, because Munchausen's, when people don't know, is that you've been drugged up and taught that you are sick. And so you believe you're actually sick, but really you're whole and complete. So there's nothing wrong with you other than the fact that you believe something's wrong with you. So you won't sit here in my presence and hold a small thought about yourself. I won't fucking have it. Period. I'm not feeding into the victimhood. I'm not feeding into the story. You are God. Period. Point blank. And that is the only thing you will be allowed to identify yourself with in my presence. That's where the intensity comes from.
I love it. I don't know what else to say for the show, but that, right? That's beautiful.
Which is exactly the way you get out of that hole. It's just that belief, that right there, what you just said, helping people to. It's what Steve Hardison did to Chris Doris on stage, TBOLIT NFL. Shake the living shit out of them. Wake them up to their giant potential. There's nothing different with the Giants. It's helping people recognize their giant potential, who they are. Once they understand and recognize who they are and believe it, there's no stopping them.
It's the reason why Jesus said to enter the kingdom, become childlike, not childish. Childlike. Back to the age before the world put its bullshit on you. Back to love, peace, joy, abundance, prosperity. That's who you are naturally. Well, Steve, then why does fear and jealousy and all that exist? Because in order to know who you are, to have this experience, who you are not has to be present so you have a contrast. I don't know I'm love unless the opportunity to hate is sitting in front of me. I don't know I'm joy unless the opportunity for miserable is presented itself. I don't know I'm abundance unless poverty exists. But just because it exists doesn't mean that's who I am. Who I am is the highest thought about me. Those low thoughts are just contrast so that I can have this experience called life. Because without it, it's just more of the same. So what the fuck is the point?
Brother, you're going to fill stadiums. I just picture like what we're doing right here, the way you teach it, the way you live it, the way you be it. That's an experience. You know, I feel blessed. Episode 121 today. Episode 121, 121 coaching sessions with people like you. And they're all an experience. It's impactful. Like the way you are in the world, the way that you impact the world, I can feel it. Just your intensity today, the beauty around that intensity, that love that you have, not only for yourself, but what you see in others. That's what people get to experience. And I don't see that stopping on one-on-ones with Steve Bacon. I picture stadiums with Steve Bacon. Intensity. Tony Robbins, he's a good dude. He's not the giant that you are. Like, I see this experience, the healing that comes from getting real and going into those childhood stories. That's where the healing comes in. That's the giant's journey. Like, we can mask it. We can put it on and here's all the tools. Go put these on. Go try it on. Go run out there with that. See how you do. At some time, these childhood things are going to come up. These stories, these events, these motivations that are hidden that we try to numb out from and hide from and run from are going to come up. and they're going to interfere with that. So until you face them and embrace them and love them and learn to work with them and release them, they're always going to have an impact. And what I hear you doing is offering a way to create, not only get in touch with those things, but to rewrite this narrative and release those emotions that are holding you back. And I think it would benefit people to hear from you however they can.
Yeah, I'd love to hear Steve Hardison asks if you share your vision and purpose, and I have a feeling that it involves chocolate-covered carrots a little bit. Do you mind sharing your vision and purpose?
My brother Steve, man, my brother Steve. You know, I've shared this vision a number of ways, and anybody who wants to see, read my full manifesto, feel free to send me a DM or something, and with your email, and I'll send it to you. But in a nutshell, I am on a mission to end the generational trauma in the Black community. And people ask, well, why just the Black community? I'm one man. And there's an old story or fable or metaphor about a man on his deathbed. And his grandson comes up to him and says, Grandpa, why are you sad? And he says, I regret my life, grandchild. And he says, why? He says, I sought out to change the world and I failed. I couldn't do it. And the grandson says, well, why couldn't you do it? He says, because I went about it all wrong. He said, I realized that instead of just trying to go after the world, I should have just started by changing myself. And then when I healed myself, then I start healing my family. And then once I complete healing my family, then I start healing my community. And then my community could then go out and affect the world. And I took that story literal. I started working on me. And then once I healed me, I started working on my relationship with my mom. And then once my mom and I became best friends, my dad simultaneously began to enter the picture. And now I healed the relationship between me and my dad. And my marriage is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. So, and my relationship with my son and my son's mother is incredible. So my sphere, my immediate sphere is incredible. So now I'm going to the next level, my community, to teach them how to do what I just did, how to end that trauma, right? There's a gentleman by the name of Willie Lynch, and 10 years ago, I read the Willie Lynch letter. Now, some people's like, is it real? Is it fake? It doesn't matter. The part of it is how to condition a slave. Willie Lynch was the Tony Robbins of slave trading back then. I know Tony Robbins will hate me making that reference, but he taught slave masters how to condition the slave, how to break the mind without breaking the body. And the effects of that still lives to this day. And he even said, teach it to one generation, and they will perpetuate it for 400 years. Now, there's been a huge thing in our community about the Willie Lynch curse being lifted back in 2019, because that was 400 years from 1619 to 2019, right? Something like that. But I read it 10 years ago, and my entire being said, if he could do it in one generation, I'm going to reverse that shit in one generation. And that kind of became the driving force in really wanting to understand how to heal trauma. Like what is really the idea when it comes to healing trauma. And so my mission is, we were taught that we were conditioned, but we were never taught how to recondition. So my mission is to teach my community how to heal and how to recondition and take control of their own minds. How we can end the trauma, because my son's not getting the trauma. So I know it can be healed in one generation. And I'm going to sell it the same way Martin sold the bus boycott. He said, collectively, we can end this idea of segregation, at least in the bus system for now. Collectively, if we all work together by you individually, you walking. Don't worry about anybody else. You commit to walking. And if everybody just commits to walking, collectively, we can change the world. Same thing in my community when it comes to healing generational trauma. Don't worry about anybody else. Collectively, we can end the trauma in one generation. And my question is this: what would our community look like when we were weightless? What would the Black community look like if we were weightless? And what I mean by weightless is we're no longer carrying the 400 years. We're no longer carrying the shit from our mamas and our daddies and our grandparents. When we have a blank slate, emotionally free, what can we create then? We can have that reality, not in the future. We can have it now. If individually, you just focus on your trauma, and I will show you how to do it. There's no, well, do you have to go figure it out? No, I will show you how to do it. Individually, if you just concentrate on you, don't worry about your mama, your daddy, your baby mama, your brother, your sister, just you. Focus on you. If you could do that as a whole, if we could just individually focus on the speck in our own eye, as Jesus said, then in one generation, we can end this shit. We will, by transforming you, simultaneously the family transforms. Simultaneously, the community transforms, all in one swoop. I spent my whole life learning how to walk people from the bottom of the mountain to the top. And we start with, this is a belief.
I'm moved.
Church was awesome today.
Church.
This is an awesome church.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, guys? We've that went way too quick. We need to have you back.
Anytime, brothers.
Any other thoughts that you feel like anything you missed, any wisdom you want to impart? I mean, you've dumped a load of wisdom, like, and I know there's more in Steve Bacon, but are there any pieces of wisdom that you feel you could share that would carry others forward today?
You know, I speak in stories. There was a man walking down the street and he saw this lady on her hands and knees looking for something underneath a street lamp. And he says, "Ma'am, are you okay? Are you looking for something?" She said, "Yeah, I'm trying to find my keys." And he says, "Well, where did you lose them?" She said, "In the house." He says, "Well, if you lost them in the house, why are you outside underneath the street lamp looking for them?" She said, "Because it's better light out here." Every answer you're looking for is not outside of you. It's in you. That's the reason why you can't find it. You keep going from masterclass to masterclass, reading book to book, going from seminar to seminar, spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, listening to every audio book you can find, looking for the answer outside of you. You can't find it because that's not where you lost it. You lost it on the inside. And you've got every answer you will ever need already inside of you. And it's that highest thought that you have. I am enough. I am worthy. I am the universe. I am everything. That is your spirit talking to you. That is who you are. The consciousness And I can say that to people because Steve Bacon Sr. is my daddy, but my father is God. Because the spark of light that allows me to even recognize that I have a life, consciousness, Steve Bacon Sr. did not produce that. Steve Bacon Sr. produced the vessel that allowed that spark of light to enter. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
This is why Jesus can say, I'm doing my Father's work. Talking about the spark of light, where the consciousness comes from. That's who you are. And that version of you is always talking to you, telling you who you are. But you let the mind be the master. And the mind was never meant to be the master. It was meant to be the slave, to do the soul's bidding. But the mind is a terrible master and a wonderful slave. And when you allow that to reverse and you let the essence of who you are do the directing, and the mind do the executing, and the body bringing it into reality, God is made flesh, and you will know who you are.
Love it, Ryan. Any additional thoughts?
You know, the the first time I was introduced to Steve Bacon was live that he had done on meeting Steve Hardison. Him and his wife had got to meet Steve Hardison, and kind of by fate, chance, all of the decisions that Steve Bacon, good, bad, whatever you label them, led up to that moment where he had the opportunity to meet Steve Hardison or get introduced to him. And as I sat there listening to that, I thought how interesting that you know, and I think Steve, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe my details are a little bit fuzzier. You lived it, so you would know. But you were going through a little bit of a rough patch, a little rough time, wondering, you know, if you're being seen, heard, you know, what to do next, the direction. I'll tell you that that there is a master, that there is a God, that there is somebody that is looking out for Steve Bacon, for Ryan Morris, for Nick Smith, for all of you. And if we can have a little faith and trust in it, a little bit, it's interesting to see what can happen and the things that can occur. And ever since I saw that, and then from there, watched a lot of Steve Bacon stuff because I was like, Steve Bacon, you know, I loved it. I thought this is the coolest guy ever, and he is just unapologetically Steve Bacon. He doesn't have to wear a fancy suit. He doesn't have to use G-rated language. He doesn't have to do something that he isn't. He just is. And it helped me to remember who I am is enough. I just be me. That's all I know. I be me and remember who I am. And it caused me some pause to think about who in the hell is Ryan Morris, right? Who is Ryan the Lion, as they call me? And got to sit and contemplate that and asked a whole bunch of people how they experience me, how I'm showing up. And then made a decision I can be whatever I want to be. There's a song that Nick loves, and it says, you can be what you want to be. You can be anything. Anything you want to be, you can be it. And so from now forward, you can go and look at your life and look back and put new meaning to the things. Whatever meaning you want it to be, start now. Don't live from the past. Have a little bacon. Show up to church every now and again with Steve Bacon. You'll be all right. And I'm grateful for. And then I got to meet you too. Like that was just that being there to give you a hug and be brothers. And we hadn't had, you know, hardly any communication other than Facebook Lives, right? and it was like coming home to a brother. And I just got emotional there. Sorry. I don't know if that's pretty normal for me though, but it felt like home. It felt like safe. Even though, like, dude, you are an intense dude, like way more intense. I'm a softie, man. I'm super soft. I like hugs and high fives. I kind of like the rah rah a little bit because I like the feel good sometimes. That's just because I'm a social butterfly. I like everybody, but even with how intense Steve Bacon is, dude, the love that came from you, brother. You were like, dude, let's do something. Let's get it. Let's create it. Let's help people. Let's do it like that, man. You keep doing that. There's going to be a lot of lives impacted just because Steve Bacon is being Steve Bacon. So thank you.
Thank you, brother. I love you, man. I love you, brother. I love you. And yeah, I felt the same way, man. That's why I was just like, I don't know where I sometimes I believe that, we knew each other in another life, right? In the spiritual world. And then we found each other. And that's how I feel about my giant fan. Seriously. I'm looking for an excuse to come to Utah and let's do some ATVs. Let's do some ATVs and smoke some cigars. Come on,
shoot
give
some
me
guns, whatever you want to do. We'll go in the mountains.
I'm a city boy. I need outdoor experience.
We're gonna have to teach you how to speak
city
Utah.
Boy.
Yeah,
I would love it. Just just give me an excuse to come, and I'll come.
We'll create it. It's happening. There it is. You heard it.
Give me an excuse.
Steve Bacon's coming to Salt Lake.
Well, gents,
I love you guys, and I love what you're about. Thank you so much for having me.
For those that are watching, some are asking for an after show. I've got a coaching commitment that I'll be on in about 15 minutes. You guys are welcome to stay on and do that if you want to do that. Do you guys want to do that? That would be the question.
We went a little long anyway, so normally we probably cut it about an hour. We took a lot of Steve Bacon's time. I would like to see if Steve Bacon would come back and do we do some other shows as well. We've got a lot of other hosts that would love to have you on as well.
Whenever y'all want.
Yep, perfect. The other thing that we'll be introducing too is a platform. So we introduced the platform of Wake Up with Giants TV, the global network, right? So we have a channel there. I would love to see you on there as a channel. I think it would be very serving if that ever speaks to you. But then we're also introducing a platform for training that is a subscription-based training where people can come in and do their teachings inside of that platform, other giants. And so that's another thing that'll be coming up down the road here. So we'll talk about that offline.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. For those that are watching, as always, your comments as you're commenting, as we watch that come through, like that is so impactful over here because we get to see what you're feeling, experiencing as you hear this. It helps us direct the conversation as well. And so we love you. We appreciate you. We know you're each on that Giants journey. Some days you feel small. Some days you feel like a giant. In some areas you feel small. In other areas you feel like a giant. But in any case, keep stepping. Keep stepping. You're exactly, like we always say, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're right on time. You're doing what you should be doing. Keep doing it. If there's some adjustments to be made, go make them. Steve Bacon just gave us some really awesome adjustments that we can put into our lives. I can go put these in my life right now. So go do that and just keep growing.
It's a mountain without a top, as Steve Hardison says. You hit at the top of a mountain and you look and you go, oh, hey, there's still ways to go.
Yeah.
Keep going.
We got almost 500 episodes or 500 shows on our network so far that are as impactful as this. It's just powerful stuff. So if you're looking for content and it's free, like go to Wake Up with Giants TV and subscribe and tell others to do the same. Like there's so much good content there and it's all like this. It's meant to get you to grow and to wake up to your potential. And so go do that. We love you. We appreciate you. Make it a giant day. We'll see you in the next video.
Love you too.
Love you guys.